Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Eating at a Meeting. And I'm so excited to have on the show today my friend Gwen Smith. She is editor and content chief of AllergicLiving.com, which is the largest consumer food allergy news website. Gwen is an experienced journalist who also happens to have severe food allergies. So I'm excited to bring her on here with you, everybody. Hi, Gwen.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
Very well, thanks.
How is Canada?
Still here.
Still here? Okay.
Yeah.
Is it warm? Is it getting warm up there?
Yeah, sure it is. Like everybody else. So we
Right.
kind of skipped spring and went straight to summer. So
I know. It's kind of crazy like that.
Yeah.
So you and I have been chatting for years now, and I actually wrote an article for you a long time ago on traveling with food allergies for business meetings. But when I invited you to be on the show this month, I really liked the theme that you brought to the month of Allergic Living covering food allergies, and that's making them more visible, and celiac disease as well. Why is it so important to make them visible? And what does that mean?
Oh, it means a lot to me. What it means is making them understood as serious disease. Far too often, they're made the butt of jokes, and it still exists. And it is essential that people understand these to be serious conditions. And I would say, even in our own community, I still run into people who will say, well, I just have a mild shellfish allergy. Well, we don't know. We don't have tests to really on the severity of allergies. So it's really important that people take it seriously and they carry their epinephrine. They know how to use it and are ready to use it if they need it. It's a life-saving drug, so important. So that's our community. But then, and I think there's almost an interplay. I think if you treat your own disease with respect and you're willing to speak up for it as a legitimate, this is a serious medical condition. And why I'm saying in this campaign, why I refer to making the invisible disease visible. I've even had people say to me, oh, well, you look healthy. Well, I am healthy, but just don't feed me that thing that's my particular poison. I'm severely allergic to shellfish, soy, and peanut. And if I have those, I'll be in anaphylaxis and I'll be in the hospital and maybe even fighting for my life. So, and for a lot of people, of course, we're talking about their children too. So we need to have this disease so desperately treated with respect, and we need more funding for research. So let's make it visible as a serious disease. My niece used to work with us, and she has type 1 diabetes. And she would hear all the stories that people had. And she says, nobody ever said to me, hey, you're faking it with that insulin pump. But we get accused of, do you really have an allergy? No, don't say it if you don't, but if you really have an allergy, it's important that it's taken seriously. So I'm kind of passionate about this topic.
No, and I think it's really important. And I mean, just speaking of diabetics, there's a lot of them that are wearing that, and I don't really know what it's called, but on their arm that helps manage their insulin.
Absolutely. It's come a long way.
It has. And so it's like, that makes it visible, right?
Yeah.
That's one way to make diabetes visible because it is another invisible disease as well.
Correct.
But it is, just recently, and actually on Twitter, I saw this morning about a donut company that posted, hey, if you've got peanut allergies, come eat this and you'll go out of the world. I'm like, really?
Yeah, it's your ticket off the planet was what the guy said. And he got,
Exactly.
And he had an opportunity to take it down, but he didn't because he didn't want to stifle his creativity. He told somebody, he's even getting news coverage for it now. But the point would be, I know it's in the middle of, that was put up right in the middle of, we're in Food Allergy Awareness Month and Celiac Awareness Month. Mm-hmm. And when people have so little regard for it, and, I mean, literally, I was phoning a child's parents last week who'd passed away from his peanut allergy. Very suddenly, it looks like from the dad only posted, he said he couldn't talk just now. They were still planning the funeral, but I mean, this is how fresh. Fortunately, let's be honest that we, most of us have enough controls in place that we won't have as severe a reaction as that, but they do happen. And it's, horrible, and we don't want them happening. We want to, make sure everybody does have a good and full life. That's why we call ourselves allergic living. We want it about, living well and fully and being able to dine and to travel. But, if you look at the juxtaposition of those things, here's a child that's just passed away, and here's a guy making fun of peanut allergy,
Right.
Like this is what we live with. So it's a little tough that way. And in that, what we did was for that campaign, we did a series of articles, if I could just mention that.
Yeah.
And they, one of them was, I know Leanne Mandelbaum from No Nut Traveler. She wrote about how she was almost kicked off a plane by the pilot himself because she wasn't asking to not serve anything. They don't serve peanuts, they just serve tree nuts. But she was just saying, can I just tell the people in the row next to us to please not eat peanuts because my son is severely allergic? Well, next thing you know, there's this whole thing going on where it's a question of whether the pilot's gone off to talk and they're going to decide whether to throw them off the plane or not. And so she just zipped it because her son's trying to go to a tennis tournament. But why are we like these second-class citizens? It's just not right. And then another piece we had related to a restaurant experience. And I know you deal with a lot of great food service people who are really trying hard to accommodate us. But in this case, it's a Harvard student. She had very little time. She felt the menu wasn't safe. She's very severely tree nut allergic. And she just wanted to bring in this one container of sushi rolls. And ended up in this exchange with a manager when she referred to it as a disability, saying, again, it's invisible. Where's your disability? Like saying that to her. I know it's just, but again, she's wonderful though. She sort of turns it around and says, it was humiliating. It was awful. But at the same time, it's driving her to speak up for people's food allergy rights. And I think if there's anything that in the food services industry to know, it's again that these are, please take it seriously. If you might have issues of cross contact, most of us, if we go to a restaurant, we want to eat your food, okay? And we're going to have time to pick the right restaurant and so forth. I'm not walking into an Asian restaurant with my allergies. It's just not fair, so I'm not going to do that to them. But this was a special circumstance. She had limited time to see her mom, who she hadn't seen in months. She's been studying like crazy, and mom's at the hotel. She just wants to grab a little bite, So, as long as if people can just be reasonable with us and be accommodating, then I think it goes a long way. But so that's where I'm just trying to say, let's make those invisible allergies more visible. Don't be afraid to speak up. We also had a story about, a young woman who learned to stop saying sorry for her allergies. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it was when she came from Britain, where they're famous for saying sorry, to the US, it was a nice American server who said to her in California, "What are you sorry for? You have a medical condition." So bless her, she really made that young woman think and learn to speak up for herself.
And that's great that a server actually said that, because a lot of times you don't get that server saying that. And we shouldn't be ashamed of having a food allergy. Granted, it wreaks havoc on us, but it's our due diligence and our rigor that we have to stay safe. And as somebody in food service who's who has chosen a job to create food for other people, a career, you should be willing to make accommodations, in some sort of fashion.
Or if you can't for some reason, maybe there's a good reason, maybe your kitchen's too small or whatever, just communicate that. So people know this one we can't do, but we can do this other one. And I think particularly in places like hotels, I see a lot of the hotel chains doing a better job now. But in this case, this young Alexa who had the restaurant incident, that was in a hotel. And come on, you're sometimes people's safe place when they're traveling because they don't have a lot of time on their hands. And, so it's super important with the hotel restaurants, I'd say. And you would know more about where they are on that than I do, because I know you work with many of them. But, so I am heartened to see that things are getting better, especially with restaurants. We're seeing, I think of places like Menu Trinfo and their AllerTrain program. And, that's sort of the gold standard for some of the training. And that's great to see. I think it's exceptional that we're seeing more of that. So, but we have to keep, as I just think that as a community ourselves, nobody else is going to speak up for us unless, we do sort of like united. And I am seeing more people respond to those jokes, like not just let the people off the hook and go, oh, well, it's a joke. We don't make jokes about mental health anymore, do we? They used to. Yeah.
No. Yeah. I actually reported that guy's tweet saying he was causing harm. So
yeah, I think a few people did. Yeah.
So hopefully it comes in. Now, you started Allergic Living how many years ago?
Well, we started it initially as a little bit of a project on the side. So that was in 2005, believe it or not, way back when. And that was the same year that Sabrina's Law started. And that was like the first law that dealt with food allergies in the schools. And that was in Ontario, Canada. Then 2008, we really started in a bigger way. And, and that was with the print magazine at the time. And now, like all things modern, we've evolved and we're now allergicliving.com, which is where all our articles reside. And the thing through this whole journey, though, with Allergic Living that's been interesting, Tracy, is just how much, even I as a journalist feel part of the community. And it's such wonderful response from people when, you'd go to conferences, like in the early days of conferences, you'd have people coming up, hugging you, going, because there was so little out there. And they just, the common thing I heard was, thank you for not making me feel alone. So, and now there's so many food allergies. I don't know if anybody still feels that, but it's been a long while. So, yeah.
Well, and it's ironic because 2008 was actually also the year that the Americans with Disabilities Act was amended, adding the word eating as a major life activity, as well as all of our bodily functions, which
eating and breathing. Yeah.
Eating and breathing. So it really gave food allergies and celiac disease and diabetes, that's when it actually became you can consider it a disability, but it's taken some time since then as well to get it really in the books and seen as a disability, because if we have to avoid eating something that could potentially harm us, that means it's considered a disability. So
yeah, I mean, people sometimes resist the word, and I get that, but it's a legal connotation, and It's important that way. And they sometimes, they don't want to feel, and I'm with them, I don't want to feel that I can't do things. There's some things I'm not as happy to do. There was a trip to a remote part of Thailand I could have done. I said, it's not in my comfort zone. Maybe for somebody who's a more experienced exotic traveler than I am, they might have been okay with it and carrying a lot of EpiPens. But, I've had like 6 anaphylactic reactions and couple of them pretty serious. So I was just like, not now,
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Well, and Debbie's piping in here from Canada as well. And it's not okay to threaten, bully, and prank those with allergies. Our young people are often afraid to disclose because of that. And Debbie, I've actually witnessed it in adults as well at events. And it's just not fun.
No,
sure.
and food allergy bullying, Debbie, who has a big group up in Canada, she's absolutely right that we do see still too much food allergy bullying. In fact, we're about to do a story soon about a woman's son just had his lunchbox smeared with peanut butter, etc. Like, this has got to become so unacceptable. It's just and it's crushing to kids when that happens. But if you look at that, it tends to keep the lines of communication open, is what the people who deal with bullying as experts always say. So, you don't say, hey, is somebody bullying you, but make sure you keep those lines of communication open where you say, hey, how was your day? And just, see if anything comes up, because teens don't always want to tell on each other, but
right.
It's so important for that, and to support them and to make them feel that they can come and talk to you. But I am with Debbie in that I would just love to see us get past where that's going on, and that, this is in any way seen as acceptable. But they're getting it from somewhere. If their parents are making fun of the allergies at home, why would they take it seriously? So.
Right. Well, and that brings up the Saturday Night Live skit that was on a couple of weeks ago as well. Parent making fun of, not believing his kid has a peanut allergy. So, and then she just made a good point too. The word disability is a tool for asking for risk reduction. I love that, Debbie. That's really
smart. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really do like that. And it's when I approach hotels and caterers and meeting planners too, it's like, by addressing the food allergies and planning for them, you are actually reducing your risk versus not asking about them at all in the first place, right?
Well, and I've met some really wonderful chefs in particular over the years. And I think about where would we be without somebody like Joel Schaefer, who introduced allergy friendliness to Disney of all places when he was the head of director of their culinary department. I mean, incredible to think that you could bring in protocols there. And I think if they could do it at Disney, and certainly,
exactly.
I mean, why can't you figure it out and do it? It's all the sort of mise en place of, where are the ingredients, how is the storage done, how are they brought in? But, Joel's one example, but I've met people, at the Culinary Institute for America, where this one woman said, we're in the hospitality industry, not the hospital industry, which was a line I loved, because it's like, and another chef who told me, and he actually has a South Asian restaurant, he said, it's a point of pride with me that I could feed you. But I'm like, again, I'm not going to do that to you. But I know what he means. Like, if you're really passionate about food, you can cook for anybody. So, like I hope people in the restaurant industry, I know sometimes we see these things and people are asking for all these other diets, et cetera, and maybe there are too many exceptions or they feel that that's the case. But remember, again, for those of us who have the real food allergies, this isn't, I guess that's part of what I want to say too about invisible disease, visible. And that is, that this is not a choice. It's not a lifestyle diet. If you want to follow paleo or keto or whatever, good for you. But this isn't a choice I have. Can't eat it. And your allergies, same thing. So
yeah. Exactly. And you can't, one of the things that I say in my speeches is like, we don't go to the store and buy it, and we can't go to the store and return it. Right.
No, I took back my shrimp allergy in a heartbeat. Yeah. I really liked shrimp, but anyway.
So that was an adult onset allergy that you had?
That was, and you had to hit me over the head with a 2x4 of anaphylaxis. I missed the early reactions that I had. In retrospect, I was like, oh, I'd be thinking, oh, that sauce doesn't agree with me. Oh, must have been that Chilean sea bass I don't get along with. But the penny didn't drop. But it was, it was the 90s, and we didn't know as much about allergies then. So, yeah. Right. So
what has changed since then, or since you started the magazine in the last 13 years in allergy awareness?
Well, I think there's a lot more of it. I think there's an awareness that people do want treatments to, like especially for kids. This isn't something that they want to live with it's tough, and they would like to have at least a way to desensitize if the immune system is tricky. So if you can't always get all the way to a cure, so that's been an area that's really still evolving. It's too slow. We need more. And I hope the nonprofits can really get things going on that front. Food allergy awareness is, I think, much better in dining services than it used to be. I mean, we're calling out the ones where we're still seeing problems. But the fact of the matter is that there are more places I can phone now. Like a soy allergy is really tough, because if it's like a little bit like dairy, it's in everything. If you're dealing with beautiful fresh food, there's going to be less of it. So those kind of chefs where they're using local produce, et cetera, that usually tends to, and fresh herbs, that's the best kind of eating anyway. But that tends to be better. But the pub down the street that's got the big chicken wing sauce or something, they can't help you. But at least they're more aware of it. At least you're more likely to encounter, what can I do? How can I accommodate you, rather than just no. And that said, you still do hear of people putting up liability notices. And, or put it this way, you don't know, right? Well, you mentioned the kind of notices you see, because you dine out a lot. What notices have you seen?
Well, and one that I remember seeing was up in Massachusetts, and it was at an event, and there was a big poster and it was at an event, and it was a big poster. It says this was on the menu, and the bottom says, please let the chef know if you have any food allergies. I'm like, all the food is preset, so it's kind of too late to let me know. It's not like it's at a restaurant. So, and it's like that, or it's this like, stay out if we don't have allergies, or if you have allergies, stay out because we don't want to feed you. That to me is a shame. Last week, I actually did see a sign in a really cute little bakery in California in Hermosa Beach. It says, please let us know if you have food allergies, because not all of our ingredients are listed here on the menu. And I love
that's great.
that.
Yeah.
They're like, we want to feed you, so why not ask? Yeah.
Yeah. I want to feed you and I want to keep you safe. Yeah.
Exactly. Instead of saying stay out, or, I get on banquet event orders, every single page, there's peanuts in this facility. There's peanuts in this facility. I'm like, I know, but there's also every single other allergen in this facility as well. And I have other people with these allergens. So why are you calling it out? That one specific one. And the other one that I am really confused by is how people are disclosing gluten now, right? And Carolyn and Jackie, who were on the show last Thursday from the UK, they're like, we can't say that it's gluten-free because it's not in that manufactured facility. But I think that's a little bit different than here in the US, but it's still touchy. It's like, there's some places that are saying avoiding gluten on the label on a buffet, or made without gluten ingredients. And they don't want to say it's gluten-free, but you'll tell me that it's nut-free, but you won't tell me that it's gluten-free. And so it's the terminology.
People who are doing that, though, I'd wonder if it's really nut-free too, because then what they're kind of getting into is, it's not an apparent ingredient, but have they really done their homework on whether there is cross contact, or whether there's, gluten-free, at least there is certification now. I guess there is some certification for food allergy friendly foods, but there's not enough yet. And I know it's the Menu Trinfo group who's working on that, and that's good to see. But those are, packaged foods. But
right.
Yeah, I agree with you. The one that gets me in restaurants is when you do tell them, maybe you're on a trip and you don't have a lot of time to, tell them in advance, and you're with other people. So you just say, hey, I want to let you know that I do have some food allergies. Will you be okay? And they're like, oh, yes, we can accommodate you, but we can't guarantee. And it's like, now, is this just a legal thing, or I don't know what goes on behind the curtain in the kitchen? You know what I mean? Like, are you guys actually able to do a process where you use a fresh pan, or you do things that will, change your gloves and stuff? Or are you just saying, this because your lawyer told you to, like, it's not apparent, and
Right.
so that's a really hard one. I sometimes will even say back, look, I can't guarantee in my own kitchen I won't make a mistake, but there's a big difference because I know that I've read the ingredients, etc. Like,
Right.
what, it's kind of like, what are you telling me? Like, so
That's a really good point. And that's a Mary Vargas question. And it would be interesting to get Mary Vargas on a call with, and she defends food allergic families and for disability rights, but also with one of my hotel lawyer friends, to say, let's talk this out. What does that mean?
Yeah. And Tracy, I've got one to raise with you because it's something I'm just starting to look at. There, delivery apps right now. This is the big thing out of, where I have not been using them, and I'm trying to find out how, from our followers, who's using them, who isn't, do you trust it? Like, to me, it feels like another layer between me and the restaurant. So, but I do hear from some people using some of the big food restaurant delivery apps, but they still call the restaurant. Like, I don't know, where do you come from on that? You deal with all the restaurants. What do you think?
Yeah, I would probably call the restaurant directly instead of using the app. Although the Toast app, which some of them are using, has gotten to be really good. Okay. And actually, there's a restaurant here in my town, New Bern, and I actually told them on it, I quote unquote called them on it. On their menu, they were listing gluten-free, vegan, whatever. And then on some of their other dishes, they didn't have it listed. And I'm like, okay, I know I've eaten this before, and on your menu online and in your restaurant, it says it's gluten-free, but on the app, it doesn't. And he's like, oh my gosh, we have to fix that. So right. That one seemed a little bit more clear to me. And that's ones that restaurants are choosing to utilize as part of also their payment portal. But I haven't used Uber. I don't go to Uber Eats or anything like that because I don't. Yeah.
Well, if anybody can write to us at editor@allergicliving.com if you have any thoughts on using those apps, because I am interested in what people have to say on that. And, I'm thinking particularly, college kids, it's really hard, if everybody in your dorm is using them, you want to be part of it. There's a group order going in. So, it's hard.
I'm going to type that in there. Okay. editor@allergicliving.com, right?
Correct.
allergicliving.com. Okay. Posting that in there in the chat. Well, okay. So what are the points in your website? You've got tons of information. And I know there's a story that you did years ago about the woman who has a water allergy. It was on the cover.
I know. Crazy, huh?
Right. And people are like, what? And she can drink it from a straw. She just takes a shower like twice a week really quickly. So between your website and what is your point in bringing about on the website?
Point of difference with our website, I would say a couple of things. There are a lot of sites out there now. I come from journalism, from major newspapers and public radio and magazines. And then people who work with me, also journalists. And then we also have some senior contributors who are more from the food allergy community. So I would say it's things like the level of reporting, the level of thought, and that behind some of the articles that we do. I mean, we do walk the walk in terms of taking the disease seriously. We try to stay up on the latest research, but I'm fussy about what we cover on research because we get hit all the time from people going, oh, we've got this new thing coming up for peanut allergy. It's going to be the greatest. And you're sort of like, where are you on your preclinical data? Where are you, have you done a clinical trial yet? When will it get out of mice and into humans? I don't want to build people. I see a lot of people just re-releasing press releases. That's not what we do. We report. So that's really important. We do have, I should mention, because we're talking food, I'm very proud of our recipe database. We've had wonderful recipes from many contributors over the years, and it's collected there, and they're really good. They're all fully tested, which is sometimes, sometimes there are a lot of recipes bloggers in the food allergy and gluten-free arena in particular, I would say. And a lot of those folks do great work. But we do have I think, quite a wonderful array. And I work in my own kitchen from a lot of them all the time. And, we have things like Ask the Allergists, and we even have things like for asthma. And if you're gardening and you have, pollen allergies, what can you do? What can you work with? We cover oral allergy syndrome, which is so big now, and we've got some more stuff coming on that, and affects so many people. That's the one where it's your pollen allergy that's really leading you to react to certain foods. So
that's amazing. Yeah.
And some of them, while that's considered usually a milder allergy, we are hearing anecdotally, and I think there are some studies of this, where some of it is getting more serious. I mean, allergy in general is just so big now. And that's why, if you're in the restaurant industry or whatever, you can't close your eyes to it. It's there.
Exactly. And, and just talking, and I remember there's a study that you did that you reported about years ago about rural versus urban.
The Dr. Ruchi Gupta study. Yeah.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah.
And she's awesome. She's been on the show a couple of times, but how you have fewer allergies being in rural communities than you do in the urban environment. But it pointed to a lot of hypotheses around why there's more food allergies. There's not one set reason that anybody can pinpoint right now still, right? After all.
Yeah. There's a lot of different factors that come into play for sure. And I've even got an answer on that for the quick response, which I can't do as well as he does, that Dr. Sasur had on our site. I can give you that if you want to post it aside. It's a good quick answer when people ask, because there's, is it the hygiene hypothesis? Well, that's part of it. Then there's also this. And, more and more we hear about cofactors with allergy. I don't know if you're aware of that.
No, what does that mean?
Okay, so what that means is, say cofactors could be even the amount of food you're eating. So say you went to that restaurant and you ate all those chicken wings that contain soy. Well, maybe you'd never had that much soy before. So it's like a big deal. Mm-hmm. But what they really talk about is for someone who maybe has, perhaps it's, they had an allergy, a sensitivity to a certain food, but then say something like shellfish, but then they had alcohol, or they had an NSAID drug, or they're under stress. Those can be cofactors that would lead you to a level of reaction. Like, I'm not talking a little stress, I'm talking about really, a lot of anxiety. Mm-hmm. And we can't forget the really big factor. It's more than a cofactor. It just runs alongside food allergy and reactions, is asthma. And if your asthma control is not good, you're going to have a worse reaction. So we often talk about, if somebody's having a reaction, epi first, epi fast. Right. That was coined many years ago by a couple of allergists and has really come into vogue. And that's a good awareness thing right there. You were saying, what things are we doing for awareness? What has evolved? But, there's that, but also that asthma control. Because when we do have the misfortune to have to cover a fatality, too often it will come up whether the child or, too often a child had good asthma control. And that makes a huge difference.
That's really important to point out, because you don't necessarily know. And kind of going back to something you said earlier is, I only have a mild allergy, and we know people who have gone their entire lives avoiding that allergy or only having mild symptoms, and then one reaction turns fatal, right?
That was Natalie Georgie, right. And her father was a urologist, and he couldn't save her life. Wow. and she it was supposed to be a peanut-free camp, and mm-hmm. and somebody made the Rice Krispie squares with, I guess, peanut butter, and she had a terrible reaction, but it was her first ever severe reaction. So it does happen.
Brian's son too, right? Brian Hom.
Is that's correct? That's his story. Yes, mm-hmm. yes, yeah.
And that's
but that was a longer while ago indeed. Yeah. And I think, again, when you ask where's awareness gone, I think most of us are at least hearing from our doctors. I was diagnosed quite a while ago, but I think that when people are hearing it with their children, they are, getting the message that you need the epinephrine. I think that we need to help people more with when to use it and to just not feel afraid of it. And people sometimes ask me that because I've had these severe reactions. And the thing to know about epinephrine is you might be a little afraid that your child's going to get a needle pinch. But the flip side of that is epinephrine just makes you feel so much better and quickly. And aside from the fact that now you're turning off the reaction, but if you get it early enough, but it just is so much better, like you're feeling a lot better. So that's the good point. If you can just tell your child, look, this is just going to take a sec. So,
Well, and one of the other stories that I want to point out too, that you reported on a while ago is alpha-gal syndrome.
That's really getting bigger.
It is. And I had Amanda Warren on last Wednesday talking about it. She's a school culinary person in charge of school culinary in Virginia. And she got diagnosed with it last December. And it's really like thrown her world for a loop. But you were reporting on it way back in 2014.
Oh, yeah. Talking to Dr. Platts Mills and Dr. Scott Commons and all those. Yeah, we're due to do more on them again, the condition again. But even when we did it just a couple years back, you could already see the ticks spreading up north. So I guess we should just mention for people that it is an unusual allergy because it's actually from the sugar that's in it relates to the tick's bite. And that's how the sensitivity arises is from the tick bite. And that it's a bit complex, but just to say that, there have been some good news stories of some people being able to outgrow it, and there are real varieties in the level of severity. Some people can still have dairy products as well, but there are too many people where you're starting to find out that where they will discover that they have problems with that, or they have difficulty because of gelatin in medications. So that can be a really, and even cosmetics. So it can be a very all-encompassing and highly life-changing disease. And it can be, and the tricky part with that one is reactions are not like typical food allergies. They come on like something like 6 or 8 hours later. So anyway, I don't want to revisit alpha-gal if you just did it, but it's talk about, the evolution of things, allergy, awareness is better, speaking up's getting better. All these things still have to continue to improve. I'm heartened by what they're doing on Elijah's Law, because somehow when we had protections for kids coming into place in schools, it was like daycares weren't really on the list. So now that's the Elijah Alavi Foundation that's moving that forward, and they've passed in New York and Illinois. I think Pennsylvania, I can't remember if they passed or not, but they have a bill. Virginia, I believe, has now passed, and they're really trying to get it in California, which would be huge because it's so many kids in that state. And so, that's people's hard work in this community, relentlessly, tireless. And I hate to say it, but some of them are people who've lost children, which, again, I don't want to give the perception. We do not, we're fortunate that we don't see that many deaths, but I always say every single one of them, you wish and you hope you can prevent in future so that doesn't happen to other children. And, we got to just if we could have even more of the desensitization, that just makes a difference between that mistake, so one wrong bite isn't going to put you in the hospital. So. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Because just that one little tiny bite could do it. And the size of a crumb could do that for some people. Right.
For some, not many. I mean, I think a lot of people have to have more, and the other thing that restaurateurs, I want them to know, don't think we don't like food. I always say, don't get between me and the food I can eat. You could get, hurt by a fork. So
that's true.
I love food. Yeah.
Food is delicious and it's necessary. We just can't eat specific things.
Yeah.
And unfortunately we you go to culinary school and you learn how to eat these specific ways. And actually yesterday, I'm very excited. I met the head of culinary programming at New Bern High School, and his name is Kevin Reese, and he's the culinary arts teacher, and he's going to have me come speak next week to his students in the culinary arts program. But I said, okay, so I'm curious, what are you teaching about food allergies? And he's like, oh my gosh, this is so huge with what we're doing. We're seeing it everywhere. And I said, there's only four pages in one of the training programs that really covers it. And he's like, no, we're doing it a lot more seriously. So he's got these teenagers that he's teaching all about food allergies. And he's like, can you come talk to them and talk real life? So I'm excited about that, because
that's great.
At that level, they want to be culinarians or, be chefs. So I'm excited about that. And kind of start there.
That's great. And when we did some reporting with the Culinary Institute of America in New York State, what was interesting is how many young chefs they had coming in who had food allergies, which is actually probably kind of difficult because, it's difficult to say, oh, I can't do this or that. But I think one fellow I remember speaking to had a legume allergy. But they're going to understand because they're going to have to avoid those foods when they're working. Yeah.
Well, and I looked into going to culinary school a couple of years ago when I was in Atlanta, and she just kept saying, here, pay the money. And I'm like, I can't make the food that you're asking me to make, and she's like, well, here, just register. I'm like, you can't tell me, you won't let me talk to anybody about what I can do alternatively. And so I just decided not to do it because it was
that's too bad. I know.
But, so two final questions. What do you really, I think you've kind of answered this already, but I'm going to ask you, what do you wish people knew about what you do?
Oh, what do I wish they knew? I just that we're passionate about, while it's journalism, I like to think of it as, so they have a term in journalism called service journalism.
Okay.
And what that usually means is like stories for women or, things with products or this or that. We take it in a deeper direction. And when I think of service journalism in this area, it's how to manage your food allergies well, how to, we do features related to if you're going to school with multiple food allergies. I guess what I wish they knew is how much I want people to still live well with these allergies. And that, that's why we're very passionate about what we cover, and we take it seriously. And part of wanting to report, not just, recast, press releases, is also we want the reader experience. We want to hear from real people who are living with the food allergies and what they experience. And we want to hear from the top experts in an area. So that's kind of a real difference that we do. We're going to be putting out our annual, very different from what I'm just talking about, but we do a sunscreen list. Now you look at something like the Environmental Working Group, they do a great sunscreen list, but it's more for just general health and, cancer risk, et cetera, chemicals, We do one that really looks at it for food allergies and fragrance free, and if your skin has eczema. So that's really something that people look to us for these things, I guess. So, and I just we're always innovating, we're always trying new things, we're open to ideas. You gave them our editor at allergicliving.com email. We get lots of mail there, and sometimes people just shoot us an idea, hey, you guys, have you thought about covering this? So I don't know, we're kind of, I think we've become over the years sort of a staple in the community, but we also like to be a voice of the community. We represent almost 2 million people as our followers. So, and that's worldwide, and 80% of that's in the US. So,
and there's 32 million Americans with food allergies.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we still need to reach more of them, right?
We do.
But, I know. So it's crazy. And I still want, one thing I want is one day to be able to go to an allergist conference and be actually able to eat during the day, not just have potato chips and fruit because there's nothing I can get. But that's a fond wish. Yeah. So we'll see.
Let's you and I collaborate on that, because I heard that story recently as well.
Is that right? Yeah.
From another person. Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is a really good point to take. Okay, so I was going to ask you, and maybe another. Well, that just brought up, what is your experience eating at a meeting? So we'll just leave it at that.
I did have one good experience. Do you have time?
You did? Okay, tell me. Yeah.
Okay, so there I was at I think it was the Quad AI Allergist Conference when it was a couple of years back, right? Because they had the most recent one, but then, we had the couple of years of pandemic gap. So I can't recall exactly what year. But as usual, you're in a rush. There's all these meetings. So really what they have is sandwich places or whatever. And, you get there and there's a lineup and you just sort of cut in to find out what they're serving and nothing you can have. So I've got to go outside, but I've got no time. So you're just sort of hustling along outside. Well, I see all these people coming out with these little containers. I'm like, some kind of like a cafeteria here. What's going on? Turned out, I believe it was in San Francisco. Turned out it was a dental school. And they had like beautiful South American cuisine, but in the trays and stuff, not a drop of soy on the premises, and no shellfish. And I ate very well that conference, but I was just,
But that wasn't somebody else's conference. You ate from the other conference.
No, it was a dental school.
Gotcha. Okay.
Their cafeteria. I'm sorry, I've missed that point. But yeah, so I'm just seeing all these people come out. So
that's
it's
awesome.
Almost like following my nose, So
that's fantastic. That's hysterical. We have to find out who that ran that dental school cafeteria.
Yeah, good people.
Okay, so final question. What does safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experience look like?
Safe and sustainable. Well, I think...
And inclusive.
Inclusive. Okay.
Yeah.
Inclusive meaning because of our people. Yeah, I think I maybe glanced at it earlier, and that is, to me, the restaurants and they can even be in hotels that are doing the really fresh cuisine, I mean, sometimes with sustainable, I mean, I even know of hotels where they're, they've got chicken coops on the roof and they're, and aviaries and growing produce, talk about local, it's upstairs. But, there's fewer chemicals, fewer, chance of cross contact, and just fresher, herbs and things. So that is sometimes the seasoning and that to me is my idea of, not only great food, but really good for the planet and for people with allergies. It includes us.
That's a really good point. And it does encompass all of that, right? It's the earth, it's our health, it's our community in general, right?
Yeah, we're not shipping things for miles and, by air. Yeah.
Yep. I need to connect you with my chef friend up in Toronto to chat with him, Murray Hall. He's great. And you two get along really well. And he grows his own cauliflower too. But
nice.
That's a whole nother story. But yeah, so Murray Hall, I'm going to tag you and I'm going to introduce you to Gwen. So Gwen, thank you so much. And for what you're doing. And I really thought, when I talked to Leanne and I talked to David Snack Safely, we all kind of got into this in around the same 4-year time frame, 2008 to 2012, because I started, actually May is my anniversary of starting Thrive.
Oh, nice.
So 12 years old this
Congratulations.
year. Thank you.
That's awesome.
So happy birthday to my company and what we do. But you started 2 years before me and everybody else a couple, around that time frame. So we've done good work and we just need to continue doing it. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me on. It's been great fun to talk to you.
Yeah. And stay with me once we say goodbye to the listeners. But everybody, thank you for tuning in today. Again, it's Food Allergy Awareness Week or month and Celiac Disease Awareness Month. Next week, I have got a flight attendant who has celiac disease, and he's going to talk about how he travels and eats where he goes. So I'm very, very excited to chat with him. And until next time, stay safe and eat well. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.